Congressman Ro Khanna. He sits on the House Budget and Oversight Committees. His district is just north of San Jose. Congressman Khanna, welcome.
Thank you for having me on.
Now, this morning, an op-ed from Joe Biden and Elizabeth Warren called for more oversight of the CARES Act funds. That op-ed also criticized the president for his approach to oversight. Do you agree with their assessment? And if so, what kind of oversight would you be pushing for?
Absolutely. I mean, when we saw the PPP program, in the first round, most of the businesses who got the loans were businesses that knew the bankers. They were often businesses that had over 200 employees, when we know in this country that it's actually the small businesses, businesses under 20 employees, that are creating most of the jobs. And many minority communities were excluded from those loans. So we need to make sure that those loans are actually going to the businesses that are creating the jobs and need the help.
The original CARES Act represented $2.2 trillion in relief. The interim bill allocated nearly $500 million more. What's the next step?
I think we have to focus on three things. First, we should be giving every American a $2,000 check if they're under $250,000 of household income, at least for a few months until this crisis lasts. I mean, one $1,200 check just doesn't pay the rent bill. It's not enough to put groceries on the table. And if the government is telling people they can't work, which is the responsible thing in many communities, then we have an obligation to help them meet their expenses. Second, we need to have a workers' bill of rights that Senator Warren and I have proposed. People who are doing the essential work, they should be protected. They should have basic child care. And third, we need to have some assistance for testing, some massive assistance in getting the production capacity, which has been the real bottleneck.
I want to come back to that Workers' Bill of Rights in just a second, but with regards to the money, we should be clear that this money is being spent against the nation's incredibly deep debt. We are spending dollars that we do not have. How much longer can we afford to do this? Even though we need it, how much longer can we afford it?
Well, I think it's important that we realize that interest rates are at the lowest they've been in a long time. Most of the nation's debt is being bought up by the Fed, so it's not like this debt is going to overseas holders. And if we get the money in the pockets of people and they spend it, there's a better chance that we're going to have less unemployment and actually may have more revenue growth, so that we don't have further deficits caused by economic slowdown. So most economists that I've studied, Paul Krugman and others, have said that this is the time that we should have this spending, and that the problem in 2008 was we didn't have enough spending to deal with the economic downturn.
Let's get back to that Workers' Bill of Rights. You and Senator Elizabeth Warren have proposed this. Give me an example of the one most important item in that Bill of Rights that you believe could win bipartisan support. There's been a fair amount of bipartisanship in the response to coronavirus thus far. Are there any parts of this bill that you think that both sides of the aisle could easily get behind?
I think basically protecting the workers who are doing the essential work. Like many people, I order Amazon packages. I'm very glad that we get Amazon deliveries at my place. Well, there are workers who are doing that, who are either in the warehouses or who are driving the trucks, and some of them are saying that they don't have masks, they don't have social distancing. I think we can all agree, if we're benefiting from these workers, that they should, at the very least, have safety, that they shouldn't be putting themselves or their families at risk.
Now, the CARES Act also gave something of a tax windfall to millionaires, and some of that may well have gone to some of your constituents. Your district includes the headquarters of Apple, Intel, the 49er Stadium, the Tesla factory. Should we expect more such tax cuts in future bills? I mean, was that a concession to get the bill passed?
That should not have been in there. I was opposed to that. Obviously, it's very hard then to vote against the package when the bill also includes increased unemployment insurance and some support for small business. But these bills were not perfect, and too much of the money also went to large industries. Not enough went to small businesses and the working class, and we need to do more. But I think people have to remember that Speaker Pelosi is up against Mitch McConnell and Donald Trump, and she's doing the very best she can under those circumstances.
I do want to be clear, though, Congressman. I don't want to give the implication that your district is just all rich people. There's a lot of mixed income in Silicon Valley. You know, Cupertino is pretty flush, but depending on where you look in Santa Clara, in some parts of, you know, if you go just north, say, of Fremont and Milpitas, you got a lot of mixed income, some low income. East Palo Alto looks very different from Palo Alto. So how is your district doing right now?
I really appreciate your making that point. You're obviously familiar with the community. In fact, a lot of the movement of Silicon Valley Rising for janitors and bus drivers and independent contractors started from my district. Yes, we have Apple and Google and a lot of wealth, but we also have a lot of folks who are independent contractors and workers who aren't being able to afford the rent and who have been struggling, frankly, for the past decade. They have been very hard hit. And our office is inundated every day with unemployment claims that people need help with small businesses that want to get loans. I mean, it's a very tough time for our district. Of course, some are doing much better than others, but there are many people who are facing the brunt of this.
I would love to talk to you another time about that in terms of how we deal with that wild variance in incomes, especially going forward once we start to get the economy back together. Because you and I both know there are plenty of people who drive from the Central Valley to a train to get to work in Santa Clara who then have to make another 2-hour commute to get back home. But that's a topic for another night. Congressman Ro Khanna of California. Congressman, we appreciate your time. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much for having me.